Hello, hello, hello. Good morning. Happy Wednesday to you. Rip in the chat, what's up, man? He was notified. Huh, interesting. The notification bell worked this morning. Well, that's good to hear. You are watching the ASTROLABE, brought to you by King Pilled. If you are watching us on YouTube, welcome. Please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And you could turn on the notification bell too, and it might work for you because we go live every morning, Monday through Friday, about 10:30 Central Time. And this is a variety show. We're going to show you a variety of different things. It's all going to be stuff. Actually, I think, almost every single tab today is from Twitter. So this is a Twitter-focused one. So if you're watching this on Twitter, we are also streaming it over there. I still can't call it X. It's hard for me. Now, it's easier for me to call it X if I'm talking about treating it as like a studio, like streaming from it. Like doing a space on X, that seems more natural than doing a space on Twitter. I don't know why. But yeah, for now it's Twitter. But if you're watching there, also welcome. Do me a favor and hit retweet on the tweet. Hit like, engage with it, interact with it. I don't know exactly what it looks like on your end because I have yet to watch any of these when someone else is doing it. But we appreciate any sort of engagement you can give us that helps us in the algorithm. Rip says, I like that you've started streaming more consistently. Yeah, this has been fun. I've really been enjoying this. It's crazy that I've been doing this for a month now. So I think the first day I did it was like June 7 or something like that. So it's been a little over a month. It's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy doing this. I like going and hunting for stories, and I've got some interesting ones kind of cooking on the back burner right now. There's some stuff that is like I'm constantly populating the bookmarks folder. Every time I see something interesting, I'm like, yep, save that one. And then I go through and I filter through some of them. Some of them will be like a video, and it's like 5 minutes long, and I'm like, this looks really interesting, but I don't want to sit and watch for 5 minutes right now, so I'll just bookmark it. And plan to go back and watch it later. And then sometimes I don't even go back and watch it later. I'm just like, hey, you know what? Screw it. Let's just watch it live. So I've got a whole bunch of different threads that are, different trails I've been walking down, and then I have to lay the thread down because I have to go do something else. And eventually I'm going to come back and pick it up again. So I don't think I've got them. If we like blew through the content really quick today, which I don't think that's ever happened, I have it open here in the background. One of it has to do with pole shift stuff. Another one has to do with the megalithic architecture and techniques for building it. And then another one has to do with the city of London, which if you're, I'm not talking about the lowercase c, city of London. I'm talking about the uppercase C, city of London, which is its own thing. I kind of digging into some of that recently and found some interesting stuff, but I need to run it down a little bit more to make sure that I'm actually correctly seeing what I'm seeing before I go publicly put my face behind some of the things that I would put behind, that I would put it behind. Josiah says CNN is now putting out articles about the Earth's core slowing. There we go. There we go. Yep. The pole shift stuff is, I'd say within a year, probably, the pole shift stuff is going to be mainstream. Duffhead said, Pete's been blowing that up lately. Yes, indeed, he has. I was actually texting him a little bit last night about a couple of the things, which reminds me, I need to finish one of my thoughts to him. On that note, I just happened to notice I'm sitting here looking at my timeline, and relatedly, in a sense at least, let's find the right tab. Yeah, this one. Scott, this is Ben Braddock on Twitter. He says, Scott Kirby, CEO of United Airlines, suggesting chemtrails are the solution to climate change. If airline CEOs are saying this publicly, what are the odds that it's already been done covertly? And what Scott says, the question was, what sustainable initiatives excite you the most? And he says, I am a true climate change geek from when I was in school in the 1980s. I think it's the largest issue we're facing in the world that we need to solve, and the biggest one is sustainable aviation fuel, which we're leading the charge on. So the thing that we have a direct interest is the most important thing. Well, yeah, that is how it works. I think the thing I'm most excited about that isn't aviation specific is geoengineering, where you put sulfur dioxide in the air to lower the temperature by 2 to 3 degrees for a few years. That's one example of something that's a cheaper option that might be the future. Now, I don't know what to think of him saying 2 to 3 degrees, because lowering the global temperature of the Earth by 2 to 3 degrees would be like catastrophic. Not catastrophic, because there's no word beyond catastrophic to decide what would be beyond it. But it would not just be like, oh man, things are a little cooler now. Lowering by 2 to 3 degrees would be pretty significant. I think they've been talking about it needing to be like 1 degree or 1.5 degrees. That if we went up 1 or 1.5 degrees, then it would put Miami and New York and London underwater, which might not be the worst thing, honestly. So I don't know if by him saying 2 to 3 degrees, if this, I could understand this two ways. One of them is he doesn't really know what he's talking about, and he's just kind of repeating it, and 2 to 3 degrees doesn't seem like a lot, so yeah, 2 to 3 degrees. The other side would be like, he knows fully well what that would entail, and holy shit, this is a black pill. Because they're not just, it's not just like, oh, they're trying this new thing out, and oh, they screwed up and things are way worse than they expected. It's like, oh, they were trying to make things really bad, and then things got much worse. Global cooling is always historically associated with catastrophe, with disease, famine, the loss of habitable land. It consolidates the population. So global cooling is not a good thing. We do not want global cooling. We're actually relatively cool with respect to the history of the Earth. Although there's this pole shift thing is a rabbit hole. I shouldn't have gotten into it because I'm not fully prepared to talk about it just yet, but yeah. And it's also something that, it's one of those things that it's the prospect of it, if it plays out like the worst case scenario of it, it's so bad, like 90% of the loss of the population on Earth, that, it's kind of like, there's no point in even being worried about that. It's not something that you just like try to prepare for. If that's going to happen, that's going to happen. If the last 6,000 years of Earth's history is going to be erased and there's going to be a reset, okay. All right, sounds good. There's nothing I can prepare for about that. So just make the most of the time between now and then, however long it'll be. So I think I do feel some responsibility in talking about this stuff publicly, because my goal isn't to like discourage or blackpill people. And some of these things, if you look into them, they can be very discouraging and blackpilling. But I've got all kinds of questions of my own about the models and the models that they're using to build the models and the veracity of those. And there's lots of different things that can explain the same phenomena. So, I definitely think the jury's still out, but there's absolutely something there. Anyways, I wasn't expecting to get into that today, but yeah. My comment on that tweet was, I'm old enough to remember when the social default was that talking seriously about chemtrails was the quintessence of living out of your car ranting at passersby schizophrenia. I mean, it used to be like the go-to thing. I don't know. I was trying to think of what it would be now. Like, what's the go-to when you get that, you hit that like immune response to the suggestion of some kind of conspiracy. So it might be, I don't know, like Jews run the world, but even that's become more normalized than in the past. So yeah, I don't know what the thing would be, but I remember 10 or 15 years ago that you couldn't even say the word chemtrails in public without people being like if they just overheard you talking to someone and you were making an adjacent point to chemtrails, you'd be like, chemtrails, chemtrails. Yeah. And now it's just openly, yeah, that's right. Yep. This is this really cool new thing we have called spraying chemicals in the clouds with airplanes. This is a fantastic, cool technology. Chemtrails, what are you talking about? No. We just spray chemicals in long trails in the sky. Now it's normal. And it's not that's not getting put back in the tube. You're not going to get rid of that toothpaste. You can't put it back. The only thing that would put it back would be like a worst case scenario pole shift type of an event. All right. Let's do a couple of ahs, a couple of laughs, some stuff that just makes you feel good. This little dude continues to impress. More importantly, his father continues to impress. It is evident he has spent a lot of time with his son, setting an example that has taken root like kudzu. So I don't know if you guys saw this video of this kid he was at some kind of a conference or something and talking to the guy who had a booth with a big old tractor, and he was asking him all kinds of questions about it. This is the same kid. The kids are going to be all right, folks.
The man of the hour.
Yep.
So nice to finally meet you.
Yep, come to the state of Indiana.
Oh, I already see some deer over there.
We're all John Deere around here. But everything's down the shop, so.
Wow.
I own that one, that one, that one.
You gotta be the luckiest kid in Indiana.
You can choose. Which one do you want to start on?
Well, which one's your favorite? That might be a dumb question. I think you know everything about all of them.
So this is a 1970 John Deere 112.
And you're the one that bought it, right? Back then?
Yep, 35 bucks for the tractor.
Oh my God.
I call this tractor the best 35 bucks I ever spent. Tires ain't cheap anymore. Like, nothing's cheap anymore. Not even water's free, which is, you may as well go back and get it in the back creek. I like a clean property, and I like seeing it clean, and I like a mowed yard. So that's kind of, I like having a mowed yard, weed whacked, nice landscaping, and a nice tractor. And with this tractor, you gotta sometimes, just to get the lights to go, you sometimes have to bang the front light, light cover to get it to go.
You know, percussive maintenance, I think that's something that I can do.
Oh, man. Can't get enough of this kid. He's, I don't know, he needs a name. It's something like, he's like the distilled essence of the grill pill. The guy who just wants to grill. This is the soul of America right here. Just want to stand around and talk about your tractors and the economy and you just taking care of my yard. You know that I absolutely adore this entire culture. I've grown up kind of adjacent to it, but on the West Coast, you don't get it as much. It's much further removed. So I've always been aware of it, but it hasn't been my people. This type of person is there on the West Coast, but I don't know. It doesn't stick in exactly the same way. Kate says this kid gives me hope for the future. Right? Yeah. I can't fathom. I try to play in my mind like what this kid's life is like growing. Like how does he take on this personality? I feel like he has to be really close to a grandpa or something, and he's basically just completely taken on his grandpa's personality. I can't really imagine that his dad is like this because he's a total throwback. He's talking now like a 60-year-old man. I can't even imagine what he's going to be like when he's 20. We needed this rain. Right. The kid's going to be like keeping track of rain cycles and crop rotations and just totally tapped into the earth. Totally grounded and connected to the earth. It's beautiful. Okay, that one was like really charming, and this one's not. This one is absolutely not, but it's funny.
Hi, my name is Maggie, and we've all learned that I don't trust them, so I'm putting in lemonade. There you go.
Hi, my name's Tyler, and I'm gonna put in Poppy because I feel like Allie's gonna put in a lot of liquor. Try to play it safe.
Hey, I'm Arthur, and I'm putting in lemonade because Allie just got dumped, and I can tell she's trying to go hard tonight. So,
hi, my name is Mark, and I'm going to be putting in some Sprite because I think everybody's putting in liquor.
My name is Mary, and I'm gonna put in some OJ because I'm kind of scared of Allie. Hi, it's Allie.
This Allie chick sounds like a savage. She's really got herself a reputation. And as you'll see, she definitely has that reputation.
It's been a long-ass week, so we're gonna do some Everclear. What the f? Oh my god! Jesus! Holy Everclear!
Mistakes were made. You guys ever had Everclear? I had it like twice, and I don't remember one of those nights. I remember lots of things that I did that I very definitely should not have done that were very illegal. But somehow I was like completely competent, and we talking to my friends the next day. They're like, "Yeah, you're good, man." I have zero memory of it whatsoever, and it was from I don't know, maybe I had a half a shot of Everclear, maybe with a bunch of I had a bunch of other stuff as well, but the Everclear just it is foul. He used to make PJ with it in college. Holy shit. Oh man. Okay. On the same subject of I try to connect these up a little bit. On the same subject of women who are not okay. This guy absolutely destroys this social media Karen's flawed take on history, and I'm here for it. I'm subjecting you guys to some cringe here, but I'm not sorry.
How everyone's always on about like the framers of the Constitution. We must respect the intent of the founding fathers and their eternal wisdom. You know, the founding fathers were like basically children.
They were not basically children.
The Constitution was, no joke, written by like a parade of brads and chads.
The Constitution was written and subsequently ratified over a period of months and years after much vigorous and very public debate between two groups, the Federalists who wanted the Constitution to be ratified and the Anti-Federalists who did not. The main writers of the Federalist Papers, which were all public, were John Jay, Alexander Hamilton, who wrote the majority, and James Madison, who came to be known as the father of the Constitution. All three of these men were in their 30s or 40s.
Your boy Hamilton, he was 21 in 1776.
So she started off talking about the Constitution and the framers of the Constitution, and now she's, for some reason, talking about 1776, which was well over a decade earlier. Maybe she's confusing the Constitution, which was our country's second founding governing document after the Articles of Confederation, with the Declaration, which was not a governing document at all. It was a breakup letter justifying the revolution.
Aaron Burr, 20. James Monroe, 18. Right around the age Brett Kavanaugh was when he was like too young to be held accountable for his actions. James Madison had just a barely evolved prefrontal cortex at the old age of 25.
None of these men that you just mentioned had any role in drafting or signing any government documents in 1776. Which I'm assuming you're talking about the Declaration of Independence that year, and none of these men were involved in.
All of my history comes from Lin-Manuel Miranda. Oh, that's a banger, man. If you don't tweet that, I'm going to. This is your average public school teacher. I wouldn't be surprised if she actually works in education.
Writing or signing it at all. Now, you started this whole video by talking about the Constitution, and people like Alexander Hamilton, James Madison were involved in the Constitutional Convention, but that was well over a decade later, and it was in nobody's mind in 1776, so I don't know why you're talking about these men's ages in 1776.
Thomas Jefferson, who I feel like everyone thinks did all the work, was 33.
So now we're back to Thomas Jefferson. So Thomas Jefferson did write the majority of the Declaration of Independence. He was 33 years old at the time, but he had nothing to do with the Constitution. He wasn't even at the Constitutional Convention. He was over in Europe. So again, this video starts by talking about one thing and you try to land the plane on another thing. It doesn't make any sense.
And George Washington was 44, so at least there were like some adults in the room. Like overall,
Like
I feel like we need to do like a policy update of some sort. It's just not working.
This has to be a joke. George Washington, at the age of 44, was the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army. He was nowhere in the room when the Declaration was being written or signed. He was not part of the Continental Congress. Now, George Washington was involved in the Constitutional Convention over a decade later when he was in his 50s. So, again,
White boy summer. Keep piling up the W's. All right. Let's keep burning here. Okay, if I haven't broken you guys with cringe already, this is when it's going to happen. But this is when we're going to pull out of the tailspin. And I think you guys will like where this goes. And if you don't, then you'll get mad, and that's fun too. So have you guys seen the Costco guys? Apparently these guys have become a thing. I think their story is actually pretty interesting, from what I know of it. Even just what you can intuit just from watching it. But it has gone to a whole new level.
We're Costco guys. We got the chicken bake. Sam's Club guys. What do you got?
We're Sam's Club guys. We have cola iced teas. Hey Costco guys, what do you got?
We're Costco guys. We got a double chunk chocolate cookie. Hey Sam's Club guys, what do you got?
We're Sam's Club guys. We have these pizza pretzels. Hey Costco guys, what do you got?
We're Costco guys. We got 25 pounds of meat. All meat. Hey Sam's Club guys, what do you got?
We're Sam's Club guys. We have a 25-pound bag of long grain water polished enriched rice. Hey Costco guys, what do you got?
We're Costco guys. We got the Pirate Booty Cheddar Blast. Sam's Club guys, what do you got?
We're Sam's Club guys. We have Doritos Baja Fiery Mango flavor. Hey Costco guys, what do you got?
We're Costco guys. We got the King's Hawaiian Sweet Roll Twin Pack with 32 rolls. Hey Sam's Club guys, what do you got?
We're Sam's Club guys. We have these 24-pack brioche slider buns. Hey Costco guys, what do you got?
I'm gonna make you guys watch this whole
thing. We got the Fruit Thief, 180 feet of fruit fun. Sam's Club guys, what do you got?
We're Sam's Club guys. We have freeze-dried strawberries that are 100% strawberries. Costco guys, what do you got?
We're Costco guys. We got jumbo plush assorted squishmallows. Hey Sam's Club guys, what do you got?
We're Sam's Club guys. We got these really cute pool buddies. Hey Costco guys, what do you got?
We're Costco guys. We got this Tommy Bahama Wood Sling Beach chair. Sam's Club guys, what do you got?
We're Sam's Club guys. We have these sick Baltimore Ravens chairs. Costco guys, what do you got?
We're Costco guys. We got this woven patio swing with canopy. Sam's Club guys, what do you got?
We're Sam's Club guys. We have these amazing affordable gazebos, great for your backyard. Hey Costco guys, what do you got?
We're Costco guys. We got a milk fridge. Hey Sam's Club guys, what do you got?
We're Sam's Club guys. We have this 4-burner gas griddle, great for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Hey Costco guys, what do you got?
We're Costco guys. We got Naked, the juice. Sam's Club guys, what do you got?
We're Sam's Club guys. We have orange juice that's squeezed fresh daily. Costco guys, what do you got?
We're Costco guys. We got the Star Wars Oreo cookies. Are you on the dark side or the light side of the force? Hey Sam's Club guys, what do you got?
We're Sam's Club guys. We got this 16 flavor hot sauce challenge. Costco guys, what you got?
We're Costco guys. We got all the Nutella we can handle. Costco gets a big.
Sam's Club gets a big.
Boom!
Boom! Boom!
Oh, thank you guys for entertaining me. There's nothing better than sitting here and watching people reacting to something that they can't stop watching. The chat is revolting. Euthanasia says, this hurts us. So there was some mutuals last night were talking about this, and one of the guys was saying, I can't remember exactly the conversation, but one of the guys was basically like I couldn't stop watching this, but then it actually became like oddly hypnotic, and which I kind of experienced as well. And a guy replied to it and said, yeah, everyone's like shitting all over this, but what I see is a father and son that are having fun together. And there's a whole lot of that not happening out there. Like, yeah, they're having fun over something that's like super crass and commercialized, and I'm sure they're being paid to do it. I would get fucking paid to do that. You know how much fun that would be to sit here and just come up with the most retarded content in the world. Just have fun, go out with your kid and just go around like seeing how creative and goofy that you could be. It'd be fun to follow these guys around. Like, I'd love to be at the store and see them out doing that, watching them like set up their shots, or get to oil up the bicep. Look at me, I got meat. Yeah, just, oh man. I think I think you could choose to take everything as a black pill, or you can work, and you gotta work. You gotta work to find the white pill in it, but it's in there. It's in there. Kate said, "I know these people. These are my people." Mr. Westford, I pulled over on the side of the road to write this comment. That clip was fucking awful. My morning commute has been ruined. I've seen a couple of their clips come across so far, and none of them have been quite good enough. And as soon as I saw this one, I was like, "Oh my god, the Sam's Club Pajeets! This is my life is complete. Now I can abuse my audience." All right, let me win you guys back with this one. I think you'll like it. The Japanese, a strange bunch of lads. I don't know what this is from, but I saw it on the internet, so I'm gonna share it. No better incident illustrates this point than the first visit of the Japanese delegation to Hebrew University in 1978. They brought as their gift, crucial and carefully thought out in a gift culture, a beautifully bound translation of the Protocols into Japanese. I'm not going to say the whole name. If you don't know what it is, I don't know. Maybe don't Google Protocols and the tribe. That probably would be a bad thing to Google. If you don't know, sorry. If you do know, you know. This was so perfect a story, so deeply cutting and dark a joke, it seems like a perfect candidate for urban legend, but it is not. Confirmed to me in conversation and email by Menachem Milson, head of the Institute of Asian and African Studies at the time, who received the gift from the delegation. This is, I want to see someone make a video of this. This is why AI video was produced. This is why it was created in the first place, so that we can use it to actually portray something like this happening, where you get, you want to see the Japanese delegation as they come up with this idea. Like, what we need to do for them is we need to give them the Japanese gift that's very, very well thought out. It's actually absolutely beautiful, designed with much care and intention, and delivered with great respect and honor. But it's the protocols. They're handing the protocols to them. Now, here's what I need you guys to help me with. I don't know which would be funnier. Would it be funnier if the Japanese guys were completely naive and just thought, oh, like, they just ran the Google search. They were like, what are important documents to Jews? And they typed it in, and somehow they stumbled upon that. And this, use this. You got the whole team like really like binding it with great care and I don't know, carving in leather or whatever to bind it. Would it be funnier if they were just completely naive and innocent in it, or if they were like playing naive and innocent, but they're really just like, we'll show them. Yes, Daler, those protocols. They were like, I don't know, like Zionist papers or something. And that's what they came up with. You guys tell me which one would be better. All right. This is more absurdity, but I think this is the absurdity you guys will enjoy. Duff said, what the fuck is this? This is military technology. This is how they iterate their military technology. They release it out to us, and then we make shit like this. And it's getting better and better all the time. When I listened to this last night, I was like, oh my God, like how does this exist? How did I wind up in this corner of the internet where shit like this is being made? What mind produces something like this? What sort of dark, twisted passageways have you wandered down that puts you in a position where you start making stuff like this? I don't want to go down them, but I want more people to, so that more people can make stuff like this for me. We truly do live in the best time. That's right. Okay, now we've got the moment we've all been waiting for. We knew it was going to happen eventually. Trump throws the gauntlet down.
I'm also officially challenging Cricket Joe to an 18-hole golf match right here. On Doral Blue Monster, considered one of the greatest tournament golf courses anywhere in the world, one of the great courses of the world. It will be among the most watched sporting events in history, maybe bigger than the Ryder Cup or even the Masters. And I will even give Joe Biden 10 strokes aside. 10 strokes, that's a lot. That means 20 strokes in case you don't play golf. I will give him 10 strokes aside, and if he wins, I will give the charity of his choice, any charity that he wants, $1 million. And I'll bet you he doesn't take the offer. I would bet he, because he's all talk. But what that match will do is prove that Joe is in fact all talk and no action, but on many things, not just golf.
Oh. We don't deserve him, folks. I am so happy that we live in the timeline that we live in, where we can see President Donald Trump. Have you taken time to just stop, just step back, rewind yourself like 10 years, and describe what happens over the following 10 years to yourself of 10 years ago? Imagine playing this clip for someone 10 years ago and saying, this is the incoming president of the United States, the former president of the United States, the public enemy of the world, throwing the gauntlet down, challenging the sitting president, who is an incompetent pants shitter. Actually, he's probably very, very good at pants shitting, but he's incompetent otherwise. He's incompetent and he's a pants shitter. Challenging him to a golf match where he's going to give him 20 strokes and he's putting $1 million, and you know it's not going to be taken up. This is incredible. How can you possibly be depressed? More absurdity. So Mike Pesca says, if you aren't familiar with the grammar of the Times front page layout, here it is. The top right story is the lead story. So here's your top right. This is the lead. The top left is the sub-lead. And then everything else above the fold is the important news of the day. Today, the New York Times says the second most important story is mounting pressure from senior congressional Dems to push Biden out of the race. So the second most important story is that senior Democrats are building up the will to push the president out of the presidential race. A pretty significant story. That's the second most. The third most is a shocking French election results upending all expectations. The French election happened. This was completely unexpected. Nobody anticipated this outcome, and yet suddenly, like a deus ex machina, this result is pulled out. That's the third most important story. The most important story is that Elon Musk's successful space launch destroyed 9 birds' nests. And you can see down here, at SpaceX, wildlife safety takes backseat to launch. Musk, something that, I can't read it from here. Something about inquiry fines. Consulting agency, something in something goals. Yeah, I can't tell. Over here, top Democrats privately saying Biden should go. Which, interestingly, so first of all, to finish this one up, Elon screenshots this and says, to make up for this heinous crime, I will refrain from having omelet for a week. If Trump didn't exist, Elon would be the shitposter in chief. So it is interesting. I've seen a couple of of videos now. You had the senior Democrat leadership or whatever that met yesterday, and Jim Clyburn comes out afterwards, and they're peppering him with questions, and he's just like, "We're riding with Biden." He isn't interested in talking at all. Riding with Biden. And then I just saw a video this morning of AOC saying the same thing, that Biden is going to be the nominee, and we're throwing our support behind him and everything. I think anybody who could tell you with 100% confidence exactly what is going to happen, anyone who thinks they can, I think is deceiving themselves. I could see a lot of different ways this can go, and that's kind of the nature of this sort of situation. I can easily see a path to them removing Biden, and I can see a path to them removing Biden before the convention, at the convention, or after the convention. Any of these things are on the table. And I can see them sticking with him. There's plenty of pathways for that happening as well. So I'm not completely sold one way or the other, but I've been leaning toward him being replaced because, like, I understand the arguments. I'm very sympathetic to the arguments of the fact of the why they're going to end up sticking with him, why they're going to stay put, and it's not going to be possible to move him out. But Vivek Ramaswamy has been saying for a long time now that Biden is not going to be the nominee, and his record on his predictions has been good enough that that's the big thing that's holding me back from really throwing my eggs in the other basket. Taylor Brown says, I don't think they even know what's going to happen. Yeah, I think it's a genuine power struggle. And it's TBD who's going to win out in that. Now, the other story that I had here was actually something that I was planning on getting to yesterday, but I didn't have the tab open, so I forgot about it. We talked about Project 2025, and the Trump position has been, I've got my Agenda 47. Project 2025 is its own thing. You know, don't have anything to do with it. They're just posers. And I told you that there was a comparison. I was going to show you guys a comparison between Agenda 47 and Project 2025. So this chick here, Jess Matthews, who I don't care about her. It appears to me, based on this content and everything, that this is someone who's a very nervous Biden voter. So it sure looks like Agenda 47 is Project 2025. See link for the entire set of comparisons. So the link here is to a GitHub that has the whole list of them. So I'm going to share that. So regarding immigrants, Trump says, I will reinstate my action making illegals ineligible for public housing. We will terminate all work permits for illegal aliens, and I will demand that Congress send me a bill blocking any future president from abusing his power to distribute welfare benefits in this manner. Like automatic citizenship for children of illegal aliens. I will end it all immediately. Project 2025 says, or Heritage says, the Office of the Secretary should recommend proposed regulation put forward under the Trump administration that would prohibit non-citizens, including all mixed status families, from living in all federally assisted housing. Along with the legislative proposal, take regulatory action to limit the classes of aliens eligible for work authorization. So Trump's is a little more specific, but they're saying very much the same thing. I think Trump goes a little bit further than they do, which is kind of funny. And then it's got the corrective note here. Undocumented immigrants are largely ineligible for federal health care programs aside from emergency care. They contribute billions of dollars in federal, state, and local taxes each year. Oh yes, I'm sure they do. Economy. Trump says, I've been saying it for a long time. There should be no bailouts. I will immediately unleash energy production, slash regulations like I did just 3 years ago, and repeal Biden's tax hikes to get inflation down as fast as possible. And we'll go quickly so that interest rates can get back under control. Heritage says, the Treasury should work with Congress to simplify the tax code by enacting a simple two-rate individual tax system of 15% and 30% that eliminates most deductions, credits, and exclusions. In addition, intermediate tax reform should repeal all tax increases that were passed as part of the Inflation Reduction Act. And then the corrective note. As a result of Trump's higher tariffs that crushed agricultural exports and commodity prices, his administration increased bailouts to farm aid from $11.5 million in 2017 to $32 billion in 2020. And then it says, but some of the funds intended for farmers went to wealthy residents in Mar-a-Lago, San Francisco, Los Altos, and the billionaire governor of West Virginia. Can you believe that? Can you believe that wealthy people got funds intended for farmers? I can't believe it. I wonder what type of person lives in San Francisco and Los Altos. I wonder. Reciprocal Trade Act. Trump says if India, China, or any other country hits us with a 100 or 200% tariff on American-made goods, we will hit them with the same exact tariff. In other words, 100% is 100%. If they charge us, we charge them. An eye for an eye, a tariff for a tariff, same exact amount. Heritage says reducing a trade deficit through implementation of the U.S. Reciprocal Trade Act, the application of tariffs, or renegotiating a bad trade deal like NAFTA all represent ways to increase net exports and thereby boost the rate of economic growth. And the corrective note says the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has said the Reciprocal Trade Act would, quote, undermine U.S. economic growth and elicit damaging retaliatory tariffs against U.S. exports. Medicare and Social Security. Trump says, cut waste, fraud, and abuse everywhere that we can find it, and there's plenty of it, but do not cut the benefits our seniors worked for and paid for their entire lives. Save Social Security, don't destroy it. Heritage says, the bloated DHS bureaucracy and budget, along with the wrong priorities, provide real opportunities for a conservative administration to cut billions in spending and limit government's role in American lives. It's funny that this is being passed off as the same thing. Like, vaguely from, like, I don't know, 50,000 feet, you could see where there's kind of some overlap here. The corrective note. In March 2024, Trump said he was open to making cuts to Social Security and Medicare. When Trump was president, his administration's budget proposals included spending cuts to Social Security, primarily by targeting disability benefits and Medicare, largely by reducing provider payments. Essential medicines. Trump says, as part of my plan to obtain total independence from China, we will phase in tariffs and import restrictions to bring back production of all essential medicines to the United States of America where they belong. American lives are on the line, and it will be one of my top priorities as president. It will also create countless new American jobs. Heritage says, systematically reduce and eventually eliminate any U.S. dependence on communist Chinese supply chains that may be used to threaten national security, such as medicines, silicon chips, rare earth minerals, computer motherboards, flat-screen displays, and military components. Bringing all manufacturing back to the United States not only isn't feasible because we don't have the raw materials, but also creates a reliance on a single geographical area. Thank you, PolitiFact. Education. Trump says, first, we will cut federal funding for any school or program pushing critical race theory, gender ideology, or other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content onto our children. I will veto the sinister effort to weaponize civics education. We will keep men out of women's sports. Heritage says, the noxious tenets of critical race theory and gender ideology should be excised from curricula in every public school in the country. States, cities, and counties, school boards, union bosses, principals, and teachers who disagree should be immediately cut off from federal funds. I don't even want to read it. I'm not even going to read the corrective ones. It's a waste of time. Homeschool. Trump says, under the Trump tax cuts, we allowed families to use 529 education savings accounts to spend up to $10,000 a year tax-free on tuition for grades K through 12. So to support the growing homeschool movement, in my next term, I will immediately fight to allow homeschool parents the same incredible benefit. That would be phenomenal. Heritage says, ultimately, every parent should have the option to direct his or her child's share of education funding through an education savings account funded overwhelmingly by state and local taxpayers, which would empower parents to choose a set of education options that meet their child's unique needs. There's a, let me make a note of a story that I want to pull up for a future Astrolabe. Where's my freaking notes? Here we go. There's a guy that I was watching a video on recently. He's a pretty well-known venture capitalist who was talking about investment accounts for kids, like as being part of being born in America, being given a like a stock trade, like a brokerage account, right away, and having it funded immediately by there'd be like X amount of dollars that are set out for every single child that's born that'll be part of the federal budget. And then parents would be allowed to contribute X amount of dollars a year tax-free. It's something that the legislation's going through right now, but I remember all the details on it. So I made myself a note, and I'll bring that up for a future show. Drug addiction. Trump says, I will permanently designate fentanyl as a federally controlled substance, and I will tell China that if they do not clamp down on the export of fentanyl's chemical precursors, they will pay a steep price. Among the most important steps we can take is to strengthen the pillars that give life meaning and hope for those struggling with addiction, particular work, faith, and family. Heritage says, disrupting the flow of drugs across our borders and into our communities is of paramount importance, both to save lives and to bolster our public health efforts. These are the mediating institutions that serve as the building blocks of any healthy society. Marriage, family, work, church, school, volunteering. Homelessness. Trump says, when I am back in the White House, we will use every tool, lever, and authority to get the homeless off our streets. We will then open up large parcels of inexpensive land, bring in doctors, psychiatrists, social workers, and drug rehab specialists, and create tent cities where the homeless can be relocated and their problems identified. Bringing back the mental institutions, which served a purpose. Heritage says HUD should implement reforms reducing the implicit anti-marriage bias in housing assistance programs and end housing first policies so that the department prioritizes mental health and substance abuse issues before jumping to permanent interventions in homelessness. Suburban housing. Trump says the woke left is waging full-scale war on the suburbs, and their Marxist crusade is coming for your neighborhood, your tax dollars, your public safety, and your home. When I get back into the Oval Office, one of my first acts will be to repeal Joe Biden's radical left attack on the suburban lifestyle. So, not really saying anything. Heritage says, in the same manner, Congress should prioritize any and all legislative support for the single-family home. Localities, rather than the federal government, must have a final say in zoning laws and regulations, and a conservative administration should oppose any efforts to weaken single-family zoning. What do they say here? Strict zoning restrictions leads to fewer homes being constructed and a lower price elasticity of the housing supply, while decreasing zoning restrictions leads to higher housing construction costs and a higher price elasticity of the housing supply. So, this is like, it's just describing the two options here and isn't actually weighing in. Wow, look at them. That's from whitehouse.gov. Interesting. Crime. Trump says, I will sign a record investment in hiring, retention, and training for police officers nationwide. This bill will also increase vital liability protections for officers. I will insist that local jurisdictions return to proven common sense policing measures such as stop and frisk. We will end the leftist takeover of school discipline and juvenile justice. And I will sign concealed carry reciprocity. Your Second Amendment does not end at the state line. And that, it's choose your battles. Heritage says, with respect to the department's core responsibilities enforcing our immigration laws, the federal government has primary authority and accordingly accountability. The department's leadership must make actually reducing violent crime a priority across the United States, and it must do so in partnership with state and local officials in a manner that is tailored to the needs and conditions in those states and localities. Gender-affirming care. Trump says, on day one, I will revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on so-called gender-affirming care, a process that includes giving kids puberty blockers, mutating their physical appearance, and ultimately performing surgery on minor children. As part of our new credentialing body for teachers, we will promote positive education about the nuclear family, the roles of mothers and fathers, and celebrating rather than erasing the things that make men and women different and unique. Heritage says, abolishing the Gender Policy Council would eliminate comprehensive sexuality education and the new woke gender ideology, which has as a principal tenet gender-affirming care and sex change surgeries on minors. In addition to eliminating the council, developing new structures and positions will have the dual effect of demonstrating that promoting life and strengthening the family is a priority, while also facilitating more seamless coordination and consistency across the U.S. government. Chronic childhood illness. Trump says, I will establish a special presidential commission and I will charge them with investigating what is causing the decades-long increase in chronic illnesses. I will ask them to publish recommendations for how every American child can have a safe and healthy childhood. Heritage says, the next leadership at USAID must focus attention on women and children's health, including unborn children, as well as health risks across lifespans, including childhood infections, cervical cancer, adolescent risks, and family stability by utilizing a coordinated approach. Regulatory agencies. Trump says, I will bring the independent regulatory agencies such as the FCC and the FTC back under presidential authority as the Constitution demands. This will effectively repeal a mountain of stealth regulations and threats that rogue bureaucrats have imposed without proper oversight. This is one of the things that makes that has the broadest popularity for influential Trump voters. One of the most significant pillars of why people are voting for him. Heritage says, a president who refuses to do so and uses his or her office to reimpose constitutional authority over federal policymaking can begin to correct decades of corruption and remove thousands of bureaucrats from the positions of public trust they have so long abused. Impoundment. Trump says, I will do everything I can to challenge the Impoundment Control Act in court, and if necessary, get Congress to overturn it. I will then use the president's long-recognized impoundment power to squeeze the bloated federal bureaucracy for massive savings. Heritage says, Congress no longer meaningfully budgets, authorizes, or categorizes spending. The president should use every possible tool to propose and impose fiscal discipline on the federal government. Anything short of that would constitute abject failure. The best solution is to cut functions and budgets and devolve responsibilities. I don't actually even know what the Impoundment Control Act is. In 1974, a federal statute called the Impoundment Control Act was enacted, blocking Congress from accessing funds and overriding congressional authority is precisely why Trump was impeached. He withheld approximately $400 million in military assistance from Ukraine. Okay, so that doesn't tell me anything. The Impoundment Control Act. We're going to look this up real quick. Okay. It governs the role of Congress in the United States budget process. Titles 1 through 9 of the law are also known as the Congressional Budget Act of 1974. It created the Congressional Budget Office. Title 2 created the Congressional Budget Office. Title 3 governs the procedures by which Congress annually adopts a budget resolution. A concurrent resolution that is not signed by the president, which sets fiscal policy. Budget resolution sets limits on the revenues and spending that may be enforced in Congress through procedural objections called points of order. The budget resolution can also specify that a budget reconciliation bill be written, which the Congress will then consider under expedited procedures. So, impoundment. Okay, here we go. So Title 10 of the Act, also known as the Impoundment Control Act of 1974, specifies that the president may request that Congress rescind appropriated funds. If both the Senate and the House of Representatives have not approved a rescission proposal by passing legislation within 45 days of continuous session, any funds being withheld must be made available for obligation. Congress is not required to vote on the request and has ignored most presidential requests. In response, some have called for a line item veto to strengthen the rescission power and force Congress to vote on the disputed funds. The act was passed because congressional representatives thought that President Nixon had abused his power of impoundment by withholding funds for programs he opposed. The act, especially after Train v. City of New York in 1975, effectively removed the presidential power of impoundment. In late November 2019, the Impoundment Control Act made news during the Trump impeachment investigation when 2 budget office staffers resigned over their concerns over apparent improprieties regarding the hold of approved Ukraine military funds. Among the concerns was the questionable transfer of decision-making authority to Michael Duffy, a political appointee. Further emails released showed that Acting Undersecretary of Defense, Comptroller Elaine McCusker, emailed the White House Office of Management and Budget expressing her concerns beginning in July 2019 that the White House withholding funds from Ukraine could be a violation of the Impoundment Control Act. On January 16, 2020, the Government Accountability Office issued a decision on the matter of Office of Management and Budget withholding of Ukraine security assistance. The GAO report found, quoting, in the summer of 2019, OMB withheld from obligation approximately $214 million appropriated to DoD for security assistance to Ukraine. OMB withheld amounts by issuing a series of 9 apportionment schedules with footnotes that made all unobligated balances for the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative unavailable for obligation. Pursuant to our role under the ICA, we are issuing this decision. We conclude that OMB withheld the funds from obligation for an unauthorized reason in violation of ICA.1, C2 USC 684. We also question actions regarding funds appropriated to the Department of State for security assistance to Ukraine. The Center for Public Integrity found that OMB's actions did not comply with any of the exceptions to the law's demand that a president carry out congressional spending orders, the GAO said in its 9-page report. OMB withheld funds for a policy reason which is not permitted, the report states. Therefore, we conclude that OMB violated the act. So clever. Okay. So what did you say again? I will do everything I can to challenge the Impoundment Control Act in court and, if necessary, get Congress to overturn it. I will then use the president's long-recognized impoundment power to squeeze the blow to federal bureaucracy for massive savings. Okay, so it's interesting how many things go back to Nixon. Trying to return the state of things to the way it was before Nixon. Godspeed to you, sir. ESG investments. Trump says the entire ESG scheme is designed to funnel your retirement money to the maniacs on the radical left. I will sign an executive order and, with Congress's support, a law to keep politics away from America's retirement accounts forever. Heritage says, remove ESG considerations from ERISA. DOL should return to the Trump administration's approach of permitting only the consideration of pecuniary factors in ERISA. However, this should not preclude the consideration of legitimate non-ESG factors. Electric vehicles. Trump says, I stand in total solidarity with you in your fight against Joe Biden's job-killing Green New Deal insanity. When I am your president, I will deliver the higher wages for auto workers. I will protect your jobs. I will end Joe Biden's catastrophic electric vehicle mandate. Heritage says, under the next president, the Department of Energy should respect the right of Americans to buy and drive cars of their own choosing rather than trying to force them into electric vehicles and eventually out of the driver's seat altogether in favor of self-driving robots. The Biden administration has set a goal, not a mandate. Not a mandate, it's just a goal. to have electric vehicles comprise half of all new vehicle sales by 2030. Now, I'm not anti-electric vehicle. I think I would happily drive a Tesla. And I plan to at some point here in the near future. But at the same time, like, I am fully aware of the madness of trying to make everything electric and trying to force it to happen. The thing I don't like, the scaremongers who say, "Oh, they're going to get you to all drive electric cars, and then they're going to be able to hack your vehicle and take it over and drive it into the prison and lock you into a dungeon and rape you for the rest of your life." Like that, they could do that with car. Like, just because your car has an internal combustion engine doesn't prevent them from doing that right now. This is kind of like the people that are like, "Oh, I need to use a VPN." You don't have any privacy. If somebody wants to get information on you, and they have the connections, they're going to get that information on you. You can get like moderate levels of privacy from the masses, but you're not going to get privacy from the overlords. Energy costs. Trump says, as president, I will set a national goal of ensuring that America has the #1 lowest cost of energy of any industrial country anywhere on earth. I want to be #1. And more energy will mean lower inflation that will mean more jobs. Heritage says, the next conservative administration should prioritize energy and science dominance to ensure that Americans have abundant, affordable, and reliable energy, create good-paying jobs, support domestic manufacturing and technology leadership, and strengthen national security. Now, what's interesting is in 2016, Trump promised complete American energy independence, but that never happened. Oh, gee, I wonder why. This whole like pole shift notion, the idea that there's, or even not just the pole shift thing specifically, but the idea that there's some incoming cataclysm of some sort, and that the elites know about this. This is why they've got their underground bunkers built up, and they seem to be preparing for something. There seems to be a whole bunch of like hustle and bustle trying to prepare for some incoming thing. And there's a general sense among everyone that something's going to happen. Everyone's just kind of sitting around waiting to see what the thing is going to be, but we all, like, our spiritual senses are tingling, telling us something is going to happen. If that is the case, so speculating here, but if that is the case, and if many of them are aware that there's something that's coming, whether it's a pole shift or there's some sort of asteroidal impact that's going to cause like major flooding and knocking out grids and stuff, or an EMP, some sort of sunspot activity or something that nukes the grid, or any of those sorts of things. If they know that something like that is coming, they have models or something that say that it's inevitably going to happen at some point in the, next 10 to 20 years, then they would have a strong incentive to be like, we need to make sure that if everything goes down all of a sudden, we can still take care of ourselves. Like, America has the resources here natively. We don't need to go outside. For the vast majority of stuff, we can do it all here. We can do it here better than anybody else can do it. So this move toward national sovereignty, a desire for national sovereignty, not being beholden to European interests or various other foreign interests, a growing will for that among the elites, I think it hints toward an awareness that something like that's coming, and it's going to be necessary in order for basically every country is going to have to be out for themselves. Like, when the shit hits the fan, you can have you have your neighborhood and your neighbors together and everything, but if you're not really tight, if you don't have like really strong familial bonds with your neighbors, then if the shit hits the fan all of a sudden, then everyone's like, I'm looking out for my family. My family's #1. You deal with your issues. When you have that happen on a global, on an international scale, then you kind of like an organically mandated nationalism has to arise. So the best way to prepare for something like that, if you knew that it was coming, again, speculating, would be a big push for the true establishment of national sovereignty for the continent of North America, and the ability to sustain itself in an autarkic manner. Freedom of speech. Trump says, I will sign an executive order banning any federal department or agency from colluding with any organization, business, or person to censor, limit, categorize, or impede the lawful speech of American citizens. I will ask Congress to send a bill to my desk revising Section 230 to get big online platforms out of censorship business. This is another very popular thing among the tech bros. Freedom of speech is very important. Heritage says, because freedom of speech ends up crashing into freedom to compute, freedom to do math, which ends up dictating basically everything else in our world now. So freedom of speech is very important. Heritage says, support free speech and hold big tech accountable. Immediately conduct a thorough review of federal policy regarding free speech online and provide policy solutions to address big tech censorship of speech. Congress should do so by ensuring that internet companies no longer have carte blanche to censor protected speech while maintaining their Section 230 protections. We're going to talk some more about the relationship with big tech companies here in a little bit. I've got some other stories to go through first, but I think we're going to wrap today talking about a long post that Mark Andreessen made yesterday regarding little tech. Okay, military. Trump says, we have very few people signing up to join our military. I will provide record funding for our military just as I did 4 great years. If you think about what we were able to do, 4 great years of rebuilding our military, and we rebuilt it bigger and better and stronger than ever before. Heritage says, reform recruiting efforts. A rebuilt army that is focused again on its core warfighting mission and empowered it with the tools, resources, and authorities it needs to accomplish that mission must be the next administration's highest defense priority. There's been a consistent decrease in recruits over the years. In 1980, over 360,000 people enlisted in the military. By 2020, the number of new recruits was just above 148,000. Which, I mean, what was the U.S. population in, what year was that? 1980? 1980. U.S. population in 1980. 226.5 million. So we've got probably close to double that by now. If all the people in the country were counted, probably close to double that and less than half the number of new recruits. Missile defense. Trump says, just as Israel is now protected by the Iron Dome, a dream once thought impossible, America must have an impenetrable dome to protect our people. We must be able to defend our homeland, our allies, and our military assets around the world from the threat of hypersonic missiles, no matter where they are launched from. What this also makes me think, if I have my catastrophe hat on, the global cycles of cataclysm, I wonder if the presence of an Iron Dome could be, that is ostensibly built to manage the threat of hypersonic missiles, could also be used to, shoot down some sort of incoming asteroid or comet or something like that. There's kind of some overlap with all of these things. Again, just speculating. Colin Rosh says, I'm being radicalized right now by a paper straw. I feel you, man. The paper straws are enraging. I just don't even give one. Don't even give it to me. Chinese espionage. Trump says, instead of hunting down Republicans, a reformed FBI and Justice Department will be hunting down Chinese spies. Biden dismantled the Trump administration's initiative countering Chinese espionage in the United States. He canceled the ban on the Chinese intelligence weapon known as TikTok, and he is allowing China to buy up critical infrastructure all over the country, including real estate near sensitive U.S. military bases. Heritage says, ban all Chinese social media apps such as TikTok and WeChat, which pose significant national security risks and expose American consumers to data and identity theft. Robust security protocols are necessary to protect DOE technology and innovations from foreign penetration and espionage. Section 702 should be understood as an essential tool in the fight against terrorism, malicious cyber actors, and Chinese espionage. I don't know. The further I get from my libertarian years, the more trouble I have really, getting it up to complain about this sort of thing. The Israel, obviously. Yeah. But I like leaving those things aside. Obviously, those things are these different. There's the libertarian concerns about this sort of thing. There's the free market concerns. The Israel lobby connection. Obviously, there's clearly something that's going on there. It's like maybe the Chinese did the same thing the Japanese did. But leaving all those things aside, I don't think we've fully grappled with what it means to have these technologies like the internet and social media with respect to espionage. And I certainly don't want foreign espionage. I want a government that's actually looking at like protecting my data and protecting my interests in the same way that I don't want them like just either actively or passively letting any old person just wander across the border. The internet, the digital borders matter as well. So I'm like, obviously there's all these other different interests that are involved in this, but you're not going to take on all these different things at the same time. So I'm like, yeah, whatever. If you want to ban TikTok, okay, fine, whatever. It's not that I'm not super invested in it, but even if I was, it'd be the same way. If someone came in there, oh, we're going to ban Twitter for these reasons, I'd be like, all right, I'll just find a different platform. Human trafficking. Trump says, I will use Title 42 to end the child trafficking crisis by returning all trafficked children to their families in their home countries and without delay, and I will urge Congress to ensure that anyone caught trafficking children across our border receives the death penalty immediately. And that includes also for women, because women, as you know, are number one in trafficking. Children are actually number two. Heritage says, the next conservative administration should therefore do everything possible to obtain finality for the prisoners currently on federal death row. It should also pursue the death penalty for applicable crimes, particularly heinous crimes involving violence and sexual abuse of children, until Congress says otherwise through legislation. There's no way that this. I don't think I've played anything that would get it demonetized, but everything I've talked about today, there's no way it's getting monetized. Mexican drug cartels. Trump says, I will order the Department of Defense to make appropriate use of special forces, cyber warfare, and other overt and covert acts to inflict maximum damage on cartel leadership, infrastructure, and operations. Because, I mean, basically treat the cartel like a hostile foreign power, because that's what it is. Heritage says, the department's primary directive under the next administration should be to return to an unapologetic focus on dismantling these criminal organizations, cartels, and incarcerating their membership. There might be a guy nearby that has some experience with that. He might be able to provide some good advice. So the funny thing about this is you see how much alignment this, and this is the enemies, putting these things up. You see how many alignments there are between Agenda 47 and Project 2025. So everyone that got all like, oh, they were dooming out about Trump distancing himself from Project 2025, and they're like, oh, it's over, bros. Oh, see, he's just going to do his agenda and not Project 2025. I mean, yeah, nope, I'm not doing Project 2025. That stuff's insane. I want nothing to do with it. Those people are out of their mind. No one speaks for me. I've got my Agenda 47. And so the people who are closest to Trump are all close to Project 2025. And the agenda he is going to pursue is Agenda 47 and not Project 2025. And then he's going to be having advisors and people who bring him people to hire and different initiatives and legislation and yada, yada, yada. And they're going to be people who are influenced by both of these things. So, hey, can I copy your homework? Yeah, just don't make it obvious. So I don't know if this is 4D chess stuff or if it just happens to land this way, but either way, it has kind of a 4D chess effect. So now I said earlier we were talking about the regime. Let's see. Let's do this one about propaganda. Good friend of the show, Kryptos, had a good little thread here. He says, quoting from Jacques Ellul in his book Propaganda, he says, private opinion becomes devalued where public opinion is organized by propaganda. Propaganda seeks to divide public and private opinion such that propaganda takes exclusive control of the public domain. The result is that propaganda severs the link between the private and the public. There is no movement between the two at all, especially from the private to the public. What this means is that private opinion is given no purchase in public spaces. It also has the effect of fragmenting private voices, preventing them from entering the public sphere and allowing them to interact and coalesce into a broader public frame of mind. It makes these private voices seem uncertain, lacking cohesion. The criticism that is often leveled against the online right is that it lacks a cohesive vision. It's just a bunch of fragmented groups of people chattering about this or that discontent. This is not a problem which is indicative to the right itself. Rather, it is a function of the hegemonic control that the regime exerts over the control of the narrative. That the online right has as much cohesion as it does is kind of a miracle of resistance in and of itself. We have persisted through cracks in regime propaganda control on YouTube, Substack, Twitter, Discord, and other platforms. Even the number of platforms shows how hard it is to overcome fragmentation. To coalesce voices to the degree we have now, this is an achievement. It's like the propaganda is controlling the public square, which is like the consolidated voices. It's the voices that are the loudest and the most prominent and the most there's the most of them. All the most voices that are all collected in one single area that is then amplified. So they're forcing out this opposite. But remember, we talked about the social physics thing the other day, where you have this polarity that then forms between the center of the public square, where all the propaganda is directed at creating this public voice, but then all the private voices begin to be identified by their mutual opposition to the public voice. So they begin congealing together, and it's just a matter of time before they're going to congeal together to the extent that they become the new public square. And so now the propaganda mechanism has to change. So you have to somehow, the people who are controlling the public square have to somehow manage to port themselves over into controlling the new public square, which is much harder than it sounds. I think this is part of the transformative effect of social media that really it's created as initially as it's a propaganda tool. It's a tool for data collection. It's a military intelligence tool basically. But the flip side of it is that it becomes very, very difficult to control. The technology begins iterating so fast that as it goes out into the hands of the public, you get it's like a bunch of weeds growing up, and they're growing faster than you can dig them up. Eventually, the people, the narrative containment mechanisms have to replicate faster than the new narratives are. And there's like a tipping point where it no longer can. It gets outstripped, and you get a new public square that forms. And I think we're watching this happen now. Like the public square, the mainstream is shifting away from the mainstream press, which is part of why it's been happening for the last several years, progressively, and it's part of why they're getting more and more hysterical. Now you're seeing them start to try to moderate, and they're moderating over in our direction in some ways. There's like blips. It's very schizophrenic. Just think of the old days when we first found each other and realized others thought like we do. We discovered that our voices are disorganized and fragmented still, but this is not a problem with us. It is a result of regime control of public narratives. They permit what is acceptable and what is not. Thus, for any voice to become public, it must cohere with regime messaging. Thus, we never emerge into that space to become dominant because we don't control the levers of propaganda in mass society. The fragmenting nature of the right needs to be seen as a sign of the scale of the problem and the uphill battle we face. Regime propaganda dominates the public space and prevents your voice from joining with others to offer resistance. This is how it works. That's how it's designed to work, and that's how it's been working. But the introduction of the internet and then the introduction of social media immediately after that, if there had been, you have the introduction of electricity, and then there's like a couple hundred years, or the discovery of electricity, the introduction of electricity as a mass-produced technology. Then you have the introduction of the internet. So there's like a couple hundred years between that. But immediately on the heels of the introduction of the internet, you get social media, and each one of these is like it's like a step function. Like each one of these is a massive change. And you get these massive changes right on the heels of each other, like the internet and then social media and then AI. And it's too much for any like single group of people to maintain control over. So they may have introduced it as a propaganda method, but they basically poison pilled themselves. Because now the greater threat is becoming the undifferentiated chaos. Rather than the excessive order, we're starting to get the excessive order of the tyranny of the propaganda. We're starting to get the undifferentiated chaos as nobody is in control of anything. And everyone's scrambling for control of the narrative. And when people have to make decisions in real time, it's no longer, they can't just follow their typical rubrics for decision making. But when I have a choice between this and this, I know that the interests that I support want this, so I'm going to take this. But as we're building tension here, those decision-making rubrics are being pushed to their max. They're being tested, and it's going to keep happening more and more, where people are forced to make snap decisions where I land on this side or I land on this side. And eventually, the whole of public sentiment is going to just right over to something new. It's going to correspond to some sort of a major crisis event, and everyone is going to switch just overnight. Everything's going to pivot. And then it'll be effectively a new world that very quickly people will post hoc rationalize exactly what happened and make an explanation for it and then move on. I was thinking last night about the term glorious revolution. If you have a civilization that is looking back to a time and they're calling it the glorious revolution, what does that tell you about how that revolution came about? It's very much like the new winners defining themselves against the old losers. So you very clearly had like a societal demarcation point. Because it's not just the revolution. It wasn't like, oh, that there was a revolution that happened and there was a fight and then, we kind of moved on. No, it was the glorious revolution. You're marking this as the point where we attained our glory. We came into the fullness of our strength and power. So we are in a revolutionary age. Related to this, I have a little thread here from Balaji, and then a mutual of mine had some good thoughts in response to it. So Balaji said, things are weird because the regime has more control over the state and less control over the network than ever before. For example, it can ram through show trials because it controls the state. But then those show trials get exposed online because it can't control the network. So you have a recipe for A, more flagrant abuses of state power than ever before, followed by B, more millions of people than ever before coming to networked consensus worldwide that state power was flagrantly abused. This in turn, C, delegitimates the state, and D, leads to even more flagrant abuses by an insecure state. Because it is the insecure tyrant is always the worst of the tyrants. If you have a tyrant, you want that tyrant to be secure, because the insecurity is when he starts getting stabby. That's a feedback loop that eventually means things fly apart. After all, the state only exists if people believe in it, but in the West, many don't anymore. It's not just the show trials or lying about Biden's senility to skip the primary or covering up the COVID lab leak. It's everything from the regime, and it just keeps coming. So I think this is a thought that I've had before, and he articulated it, I think, really well, in spite of the sort of critique that my mutual is going to make on him here in a minute. But this is part of the phenomenon that I'm talking about, where the forming of the network consensus forming is beginning to route around the corrupted nodes. So the nodes, the main apparatuses of regime narrative control, have been revealed to be flawed. They're all corroded, and the signal doesn't flow through them cleanly. And people are beginning to recognize that they're broken. It doesn't work. So what does this emergent network do? It just routes around those nodes and begins to form different nodes. And the truthiness of those nodes, the correspondence to reality, will lend power to them. Human beings have a nose for the truth. It can get pretty corrupted. It could be very, disabled, but it can't be completely disabled. Because the truth is ultimately a person, and you can sense a person. You can feel a person. No matter how blind you are, you can feel a person there. So the truth is a person. So anything that corresponds to the truth, human beings are going to have an innate sense for it. They're going to be pulled in that direction, pulled toward it. So as this network is beginning to route around these different nodes, it's going to start forming other the nodes that get thicker, and you have like the line between the nodes that gets thicker and thicker based on the number of paths traveling along it. And eventually those new thicker nodes are going to like spontaneously form into the new public square. That's going to function differently. It's going to have different characteristics. It's going to have different narratives. It's going to have different primary voices. So from 50,000 feet, it's going to function the same way. It's going to be a propaganda narrative containment mechanism, but it's going to have granularly, it's going to have different characteristics that change its nature. We don't know exactly what it's going to be, but you can map out, like game theory out, how this is going to happen. So my mutual here, Slow Up, this is at slow 3_up. He says, I don't think Balaji is quite right here. The regime has always had these powers. What's changed besides the introduction of the internet is their, and I think this is a big besides, but it's their lack of competency. Their conspiracies are childish and goofy now. Ruby conveniently murdering Lee Harvey Oswald isn't that much better than Epstein's security camera malfunctioning while he committed suicide. COVID could have been executed with manufactured War of the Worlds style panic in the pre-internet days. FDR could hide his paralysis easier, but nobody would have tried to hide senility and Parkinson's disease. They're just dumber now. They're run by 29-year-old girl bosses with communications degrees. I think this is very true. So I think Balaji is right, and I also think that his critique of Balaji is also correct. That I think the introduction of the internet is a really big besides. The lack of competency is also a really big deal. And just the increased transparency that's brought by having, people filming things with their cameras, with their phones and posting them on the internet all the time. And anybody being able to leak anything all over the place. The increased transparency of more conversations happening and more stuff being made visible, and the algorithms becoming like a self-reinforcing a feedback loop of human engagement. So the more interesting it is, the more interesting it becomes. These things are all working together toward the same end. And none of these are necessarily controlled conspiracies themselves. They're just organic outworkings of human behavior. The social physics thing that I need to go read about. The chemistry of metaphysical human bodies. That sounds very weird. I wanted to say something here. This. COVID could have been executed with manufactured War of the Worlds style panic in the pre-internet days. Makes you wonder how many of those things actually happened. How many of our historical narratives that we just kind of take for granted. Oh yeah, we just assume, oh yeah, that thing was a thing that happened. We don't even have really reason to question it. How many of them actually played out the same way that COVID did? For the history books are going to record that, X number of people died from this thing, and that it was like, they're going to record the story of it. And years from now, people may just kind of mindlessly repeat those things as like, oh yeah, that's how many people died. But I wonder how many historical things there are that wasn't, the same thing happened. Some sort of narrative was built up. The story was created around the event, irrespective of the actual truth of the facts in the story. And then everybody just kind of takes it on. Just assumes that's the case. Can you guys think of any like that? Tricky Woo says, only the 27th like. Come on, people. We've got 54 watching right now, 28 likes. Help me out, folks. Help me out. I'm working for you. Give me a little something. Let's see. Taylor says, based on how well his campaign is going, it really is starting to feel like the personnel are coming together. Okay, so another related thread. This guy's starting to show up on here a lot. Eugippius. He says, you may notice that the gay is both extremely powerful. Remember the piss drinker? You may notice that the piss drinker is both extremely powerful and also extremely sensitive to any manifestations of popular resistance. A random AfD mayor gets elected in some bumblefuck town in East Germany. The entire German division of the gay has a SAD spanning multiple news cycles. I think this means the system is overextended. Yes, the gay holds all the cards. It's very powerful, but it's doing so much, pouring so many resources into so many eccentric projects in every last village, that even small peripheral losses cause the regime to contemplate a retreat. This is why it behaves with such possessive insanity and lends the impression of weakness, like an over-leveraged tycoon hyperventilating about microscopic moves in the market. Every small win threatens some program somewhere, represents something the gay would like to do that it suddenly can't. This is one reason why voting still matters. Even the resources spent to defeat the resistance of voters, from America 2020 to France 2024 to Germany ongoing for years now, represents other things the gay can't do and is angry that it can't do. You just have to keep pushing. I think this is a very good... I didn't expect it, like, reading through to this point, I didn't expect it to take the turn into voting. But I had a conversation with Justin... Was it with Justin Campbell? Who was I talking to the other day when we were talking about voting and the necessity of it? I had a long conversation with someone about this where we were talking about the, is it your civic duty to go and like be invested in the process regardless of how real it is or not, or is it a waste of time? And it doesn't really take that much time. And we had an interesting conversation on it, and I can't remember who it was. If somebody in the chat remembers, please remind me. But see, this, I'm a little ambivalent. Like, on one hand, I understand this idea of like the power of the civic nationalist and being very invested in your local community. You know, obviously, it betrays its own essence if you're just voting. That's the only way where it's expressed. But it's like, it's such a simple, easy thing that you can go do that cultivates that spirit. We want people to be invested in their communities. So local voting, I think, is much more important than federal voting. But even then, I could see is this game theory? The notion that, yes, there's obviously lots of efforts to subvert everything, which leaves us with the only option being make it as hard on them as possible. Make them work for it as much as possible. Kind of like, you know, you're running away from someone and you're just flinging shit down, knocking boxes and barrels over behind you and making them have to jump and run around stuff. I don't know. It seems like a simple, easy little thing that people can do that if enough people do it, then it doesn't determine outcomes, but it can definitely put a thumb on the scale. But I think the general point here is very good, that the GAY has been executing a process of trying to build the most massively complex systems of all time while shrinking away from the use of straight lines, which increases the complexity because the straight line is just weaponizing power directly. But a Fox regime can't do that. So they have to build out. They can't take one step. They have to take 5 roundabout steps to get to something. So the complexity gets greater and greater, which means the feedback loops are getting more and more out of their control. They're further and further removed from the actual facts on the ground, which is compromising their ability to make decisions. And they're trying to fight wars on a whole bunch of different fronts at all times. And in all of this, they're also actively undermining their own competency. They're cultivating a competency crisis, which directly undermines everything that they're trying to do. You can't build the World Economic Forum globalist Davos vision with a bunch of incompetent. What was the other? Oh, it was a bunch of like millennial girl bosses. Millennial girl bosses aren't very good at managing super complex systems. So the more complexity in the system, the worse they're going to perform in it to begin with. And then add on to the fact that they're uniquely incompetent people, and it just their collapse is coming. It's just a matter of what the effect of it is going to be on us. Speaking of incompetence, got 2 more stories for you guys. First one here is about New York City. We've talked about my thesis about what's happening in the urban centers, that we're seeing an inversion of the Dust Bowl during the Great Depression. We're seeing the opposite of that happening now. People have posited a few different things: smog bowl, concrete bowl, whatever you want to call it. Here is an example of just how fucking retarded these people are. So this guy here, whatever his name is, says, "Oh my God, New York City paid McKinsey $4 million to do a study on if trash cans work." New York City orders $4 million McKinsey study on whether trash piles would be better inside containers. Now, you might think that this is someone distorting the story for comedic effect. You know, here's a good meme. John Ekdahl here says, McKinsey and Company to the Mayor Eric Adams in New York, study, do trash cans work? Study findings, yes. Balance due, $4 million. So you might think that this is overstating it a little bit. It wasn't actually quite that. There was some nuance to it. No, there wasn't. New York City, this is from Trung T. Fan. New York City paid McKinsey $4 million to conduct a feasibility study on whether trash bins are better than leaving garbage on the street. The deck is 95 slides long, entitled The Future of Trash. Some highlights. The official term is containerization, which is the, quote, storage of waste in sealed, rodent-proof receptacles rather than in plastic bags placed directly on the curb. Two main types of containerization. One, individual bins for low-density locales, and two, shared containers for high density. NYC needs to clean up 24 million pounds of garbage a day. 24 million pounds of garbage a day. Containerization has only become the norm worldwide in major cities in the past 15 years. New York City first considered containerization in the 1970s, but never conducted a feasibility study until now. He says McKinsey's sales team has been dropping the ball. Key considerations for container viability. Population density. New York City has 30,000 residents per square mile, which is fucking insane. 30,000 residents per square mile. The town I grew up outside of had 25,000 residents. It is difficult to comprehend 30,000 people per square mile. I remember hearing sometime back in, I think it was in high school, at the time I went to high school in Canada, and I remember someone making the point that at like the middle of the day, like noon or 1 o'clock or something like that, the total number of people above something like the 27th floor or something like that in New York City was greater than the population of Canada. I don't remember the specific details of it, but the fact that you could put any of those things, you could put any number on that is astonishing. I remember traveling to Manhattan, and I understood why people call it the concrete jungle. If you haven't been there, if you've been, you like live in a big city. If you haven't been to either Manhattan or to LA, you have not seen what a big city is like. It is staggering how big and densely packed Manhattan alone is. And then LA, if you fly over LA, it's just a never-ending sprawl of city. Just as far as you can see, just massive. Yeah, bearish on cities, indeed. Built environment. Few places to hide containers due to history of infrastructure development. Weather. Snow creates challenges for mechanized collection in the winter. Curb space. Mostly taken up by bus stops, bike lanes, outdoor dining, and fire hydrants. Now, what this makes me wonder is, so the curb space is, it's difficult to build infrastructure to contain all of the trash because the curb space is mostly taken up by bus stops, bike lanes, outdoor dining, and fire hydrants. But all that trash is going somewhere. Those of you who live in New York City, is it literally just like bags of trash just piled up on the sidewalk? And the question here is, like, are we going to have bags of trash piled up, or are we going to have bins in the same spot with the trash bags inside of them? Because if there's not curb space for the trash, well, where's the trash going right now? Presumably it's on the curb. Collection frequency. New York City needs to double frequency of pickup for estimated speed of trash that bins would accumulate. Fleet. A new garbage truck will need to be designed for collecting rolling bins at scale. Can you imagine? I've never lived anywhere that didn't have trash collection solved. All these people that live in these urban centers, you guys are fucking like, they're super, they all look down on the rural people like, hey, we've got trash pickup solved. You know, we figured that out a few decades ago. You know, here at my suburban neighborhood I live in, we get recycling and trash picked up every Wednesday and Saturday between Memorial Day and Labor Day. And then it's every Wednesday otherwise. We have our trash cans. We put the trash in the trash can. We roll it out to the curb, and the trash truck comes by, and they pick it up. And that here, the elite, the bourgeois, elitist, urbane peoples are like, oh, we have to have a garbage truck that's designed to pick up trash cans. We need to put our trash in trash cans. Who's the real peasant? See ya, Taylor. Join the Discord, kingpill.com. Go join the Discord. Kate says, I can't tell you how many times I had to venture out of the streets of New York City going to and from work and the level of stench that would become utterly exacerbated by the heat in the summer. Oh, man. Oh, man. Yeah, these are truly our betters, aren't they? Living in shit. These are the mud people. The proposed solution, literally garbage bins and shared containers, covers 89% of New York City streets and 77% of residential tonnage. The 3 case studies, because you've got to have solid case studies, are Amsterdam, Paris, and Barcelona. There is a slide called Why Containerization Matters, and 3 reasons are rats, pedestrian obstruction, and dirty streets. The 21-year-old intern that did this slide, billed at probably $10K an hour, is my hero. That's the greatest thing. Like, so you have some intern who's putting together a slide deck saying the reason you shouldn't have trash just dumped willy-nilly out on your sidewalk is because you'll get rats, it'll block pedestrians from walking down the sidewalk, and it'll make the streets dirty. They had to commission a study for someone to bring them that result. The study's actually pretty interesting. I have no idea if $4 million is a ripoff to learn that, yeah, we should put garbage in bins so rats don't eat it. But I would have happily done it for 10 to 20% of that budget and come to a similar conclusion. The racket that McKinsey has going is incredible. Look at this. What is containerization? Containerization refers to the storage of waste in sealed rodent-proof receptacles rather than in plastic bags. It is intended to mechanize waste collection, reduce the visibility of garbage set out in public spaces, and reduce the presence of vermin. Like, it's like they're describing some foreign culture. Oh, what do these weird people do? They put their trash in bins. They have trash cans. They don't just drop it on the ground in a plastic bag. So yeah, you could probably drive like 50 miles from where the city is and see a neighborhood that functions that way. Why containerization matters. Oh my God. How do people live like this? Like, imagine the people who go, the journalists, the news personalities, they walk down the sidewalk next to this, tweeting away their horror at how Trump is going to destroy everything that's good in the world, while they're dodging around this and getting honked at by a cabbie, sniffing, wafting the great perfume. These people don't deserve any respect. This is incredible. Is containerization viable in New York City? No. I would love him to return this back to them with, no, I can't do it. Just got to keep tossing them on the sidewalk. Yeah, just heave it out your front door. That's the only thing you can do. There's nothing we can do about it. Sorry. $4 million, please. Incredible. If you live in an urban center, you need to get out. I'm uncomfortable living in suburbia. Just come on. Just do it. Just get out. There's no reason to stay there. You're going to come up with all kinds of rationalizations. Oh, my job. Oh, my career. Oh, my family. Just get out. Just leave. Just leave. You don't want to live with the mud people. Go live in a nice suburban or rural community where we've solved such basic problems as trash pickup. It's wonderful. You know, one day out of the week, I see lots of trash cans. And some of them have piles of trash next to them. And then they're gone. They just disappear. And then it's just a nice sidewalk with grass, some trees, a little bit of dirt, maybe some gravel. Yeah, no trash. I don't see that. You don't have to live that way. You don't have to associate with these subhuman apes that don't even know how to take care of they don't even know how to manage their own neighborhoods. Just leave. You can do it. Kate says it wasn't like that 24/4. Was this supposed to be 24/7? But there'd be days before all that trash would get collected by the garbage trucks. Just the sheer incompetence of not even getting that squared away with a city of 100,000 plus. It's amazing. There'd be multiple days a week before the trash. There would be multiple days a week before the trash would get collected. Multiple days to a week before the trash would get collected. Insane. I should mention that during the de Blasio days, can't even imagine how much worse it's gotten under Adams. Yeah, just leave. Just leave. The cities are crumbling. The cities are collapsing. If for no other reason than because, like, the cities are going to get a real big bath soon. 10 to 20 years. You don't want to be next to the water if something like that happens. You want to get up into the middle part of the continent. Get up on some elevation. That's your best bet. The cities are going to get a nice big bath, just kind of sweep everything away, and then we'll start anew. All right, last story of the day. Might actually finish in under 2 hours. The little tech agenda. So this is tweeted by Mark Andreessen, probably my most powerful mutual. Yes, I am one of the 24,400 people he follows. The little tech agenda. This is a letter from Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz, the namesakes of Andreessen Horowitz, written on July 5, 2024. Little tech is our term for tech startups, as contrasted to big tech incumbents. Little tech has run independent of politics for our entire careers. But as the old Soviet joke goes, you may not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you. Now, right from the get-go, little tech has run independent of politics for our entire careers. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of startups out there that just kind of showed up with this, amazing idea and magically had the greatest success stories of all time. 10 years later, they're the most powerful companies in the world. Those were startups. Those were quote unquote little tech at some point, but they certainly were not independent of politics. We believe bad government policies are now the number one threat to little tech. We believe American technology supremacy and the critical role that little tech startups play in ensuring that supremacy is a first-class political issue on par with any other. The time has come to stand up for little tech. Our political efforts as a firm are entirely focused on defending little tech. We do not engage in political fights outside of issues directly relevant to little tech, but we will fight for little tech, for the freedom to research, to invent, to create jobs, to build the future, with all of our resources. We find that there are three kinds of politicians. Those who support little tech, we support them. Those who oppose little tech, we oppose them. Those who are somewhere in the middle. They want to be supportive, but they have concerns. We work with them in good faith. We support or oppose politicians regardless of party and regardless of their positions on other issues. We're in this for the long haul. America. America led the 20th century because we are preeminent in three dimensions. One, technology. America drove the second industrial revolution through the 1930s and then the computer revolution since the 1940s. Number two, economy. America's free market system created enormous societal wealth and dramatic improvements in quality of life for everyday people. Number three, military. American military might drove victory in World War I and World War II and then catalyzed the unilateral surrender and dissolution of the Soviet Union. So we're getting, basically bog standard 1990s American regime narrative here. Each of these dimensions reinforces the other two. I do think that there's, regardless of how cynically I do view this story of the past couple hundred years of the country's history, I do think that there is utility in this mythology. Each of these dimensions reinforces the other two. Our technology preeminence powers our economy and our military. Our economic growth pays for our massive investment in technology and our military. And our military dominance keeps us safe from foreign threats and hostile ideologies that could crush our technology, our economy, and our people. I'm getting a phone call right now from the University of Iowa. Some of you Iowans out there, what do you, did I get reported to the Iowan police for talking about Iowans too much? I'm sorry you guys got flooded. It's not my fault. Josiah, make them back off. And America's success has positive global spillover effects to much of the rest of the world. American technology is the global standard. The American economy is the leading production and consumption partner of many other nations. And the American military has maintained overall global peace and prosperity since World War II to a level unprecedented in world history. Yeah. It's something like that, huh? Naysayers say America's best days are behind us, that the 21st century will see America play a diminished role in all three dimensions. We disagree. There is no reason American technology, economic, and military leadership cannot continue for decades to come. There is no reason the 21st century cannot be a second American century. Startups. American technology leadership is the result of a complex system built over the last 150 years that includes our pioneering spirit, our work ethic, our rule of law, our deep capital markets, our higher education system, and long-term government investment in scientific research. And university, government, and corporate labs have all played key roles. But the vanguard of American technology supremacy has always been the startup. From Edison and Ford to Hughes and Lockheed to SpaceX and Tesla, the path to greatness starts in a garage. Now, it's funny that he mentions those names because, yes, the mythology is they started in a garage. But literally every single name that he mentioned there is... This is the average guy who's just sitting down in his room and comes up with some sort of technology and releases it and then goes big and becomes an uber billionaire. Yeah, those are nice stories that are told as cover for the actual truth. But I don't think that I'm not so cynical to say that there isn't utility in the story in the first place and trying to inspire the same thing. Trying to inspire the thing that didn't actually happen. I think there is utility in creating these mythologies. A startup is what happens when a plucky group of outcasts and misfits comes together with a dream, ambition, courage, and a particular set of skills. Because this story does exist. A plucky group of outcasts and misfits who come together with a dream, ambition, courage, and a particular set of skills. That does exist. And we do want that sort of thing to exist and persist. It's just that the stories that are propped up as the examples of that aren't actually that. To build something new in the world, to build a product that will improve people's lives, and to build a company that may go on to create many more new things in the future. And I would also say that these guys probably believe a lot of this earnestly, or at least they're speaking to people who do earnestly believe all of this. It wasn't so long ago that I earnestly believed all of this, so it's not that far-fetched. The enormous advantage of any startup is a clean sheet of paper, a single shot to imagine and realize a different and better world. But startups start with every other disadvantage. Specifically, they must go up against incumbent companies that have overwhelmingly superior brands, market positions, customer bases, and financial strength. Incumbents that are out to strangle startup competition in the cradle. And it's interesting how this is happening. They're identifying this on the technological level. How long until they begin using this frame on the political level? Starting to view political incumbencies as having the same characteristics as commercial incumbencies, because that's not a hard line. that's a very blurry gradient there. Kate says it all started in the garage with a good chunk of funding from the deep state. Yeah. Let's see. Specifically, they must go up against incumbent companies that have overwhelmingly superior brands, market positions, customer bases, and financial strength. Incumbents that are out to strangle startup competition in the cradle. Incumbents often have another enormous advantage, the ability to wire the government against startup competitors. Dominant companies don't start out that way. In fact, they start as startups, fighting their way uphill until they reach a position of power where they seek to lock in their gains, to pull the rope ladder up behind them. They inject themselves into the political system and seek regulatory capture, a wall of laws and regulations that protect and entrench their positions and that new startups cannot possibly scale. The historical result of regulatory capture in market after market has been government-enforced monopolies and cartels. And the motto of every monopoly and cartel is, we don't care because we don't have to. When this cycle is allowed to play out, when big companies can weaponize the government against startups, the result is stagnation and then decline. There are many signs of stagnation and decline in the American economy today. Economists measure the rate of technology improvement in the economy as productivity growth. And productivity growth today, after 50 years of the proliferation of the profoundly powerful technologies of the computer and the internet, is lower than before the 1970s. The real-world consequences are staggering. Low productivity growth means low economic growth. Low economic growth means a low rate of improvement in quality of life for regular people, if not outright backsliding. See, for example, skyrocketing prices and stagnating quality of education, healthcare, and housing. Sure signs of regulatory capture. Low economic growth also means the rise of smash-mouth zero-sum politics, as gains for one group of people necessarily require taking things away from other people. Zero-sum politics lead to corrosion of the national spirit of opportunity and growth. We can feel this corrosion all around us. The way to prevent this outcome is to encourage new startups, to drive innovation, competition, and growth, and to prevent big companies from weaponizing the government to crush them. Now, this is interesting. This perspective is very libertarian. It's also very neo-reactionary. identifying this phenomenon, that this is not simply a public versus private issue. This is the major companies essentially functioning as a wing of the regime. This point here, I think, is very good. Low economic growth means the rise of smash mouth zero sum politics, as gains for one group of people necessarily require taking things away from other people. The thing that comes to mind most readily is Medicare and Social Security, because imagine if, like, the concerns about Medicare and Social Security are downstream from the problems of economic stagnation, lack of productivity, lack of growth. Because if we had productivity and growth sufficient that paying these old debts was like, yeah, whatever. You know, like if you've got $100,000 in debt and you're making $20,000 a year, that $100,000 is going to be a massive boulder that you carry around on your shoulders. But if you have $100,000 in debt and you're making $500,000 a year, then you're not going to think about that debt nearly as much. If you're making $5 million a year, you're not going to think about it at all. So on a social level, the fact that things like Medicare and Social Security have to become major political battlegrounds is itself evidence of this problem. And it's a way that you could solve that problem is you could say, oh, well, we just need to bludgeon the boomers into giving it up. Or you could solve it indirectly by solving the productivity and economic growth problem. Problem. The American government is now far more hostile to new startups than it used to be. For example, regulatory agencies have been greenlit to use brute force investigations, prosecutions, intimidation, and threats to hobble new industries such as blockchain. Regulatory agencies are being greenlit in real time to do the same to artificial intelligence. Regulatory agencies are applying direct pressure to banks to cut off disfavored startups and founders from the financial system. Regulatory agencies are punitively blocking startups from being acquired by the same big companies the government is preferencing in so many other ways. The federal government, as a customer in critical sectors like defense and intelligence, is more wired than ever to favor big incumbents over innovative startups. And the government is currently proposing a tax on unrealized capital gains, which would absolutely kill both startups and the venture capital industry that funds them. The anti-startup bias that is increasingly pervasive across the American government is a clear and present threat to the health and vitality of American technology success, and therefore to the American economy, the American military, and the American people. Why is this happening? In part, explicit decisions. In part, inertial drift. But also because tech startups as an industry do not show up in Washington, D.C. and in the political system the way big companies do. As long as this imbalance persists, the war on tech startups and the resulting threat to America will continue. Therefore, the need to politically defend little tech. There was something I was going to comment on. So here. The government proposing a tax on unrealized capital gains, which would absolutely kill both startups and the venture capital industry that funds them. This is a fantastic example of how the regime coalition begins splitting itself apart. Because you have the factions within the regime that see this as a potential revenue stream that doesn't affect their own economic interests in their mind. So they form political will behind this. Meanwhile, the other segments of the coalition, such as the venture capital industry and the investment banks behind them, are like, excuse me? You're going to tax unrealized capital gains? No, you are not. You have absolutely lost your motherfucking mind. You are kicked out of the coalition. We are going to a new coalition. That's how you get this type of guy, Mark Andreessen. That's how you get this class of person bailing on the existing regime. And once you start bailing on parts of it, it becomes pretty easy. These are still just human beings. They're just people who view themselves as a minority with respect to everything else. Once they begin seeing one problem, it gets really easy for them to start seeing all the other problems. And if they have the remotest amount of intellectual honesty, which can be a challenge for them, but I think some of them definitely are well-meaning. They're acting in good faith. Then it becomes really hard not to notice how many times he says regulatory agencies. Everything here is focused on regulatory agencies. Which political faction right now that wields the most power has regulatory agencies in their sights? There's a reason for this. Opportunity. Reversing ruinous policies is just one side of the coin. We can also imagine positive policies that encourage tech startups to flourish, benefiting those startups and their customers and forcing big incumbents to stay vital and dynamic due to startup competition. For example, regulatory reform in important industries like healthcare, education, and housing to strip incumbents of their current regulatory capture and drive higher quality at lower prices. Policies to reconstruct the American manufacturing sector around automation and AI, reshoring entire industries and creating millions of new middle-class jobs. Reinvention of the American military-industrial base by new companies building defense systems on the leading edge of autonomy and AI. Environmental reform to encourage the development and deployment of nuclear power for unlimited clean energy production. Expansion of high-skilled immigration to encourage foreign graduates of American universities and others to build new companies and industries here. I know you guys, I have some thoughts on this in a minute, but I want to finish this. And a whole-of-government program to drive the success of U.S. technology companies globally against a hostile China and a regulation-crazed EU. We have no doubt that an American government that actually wants startups to succeed and new industries to flourish would drive enormous increases in the standard of living by regular Americans and underwrite many more decades of American technology, economic, and military strength. The glory of a second American century is within our reach. Let's grasp it. So this is, you guys have heard me talk about Gundo. You've heard me talk about American dynamism. This is the spirit. This is the spirit that is, regulation, the expansive federal bureaucracies that are not reined in whatsoever by Congress, by the judiciary, or by the executive branch. They exist as a fourth branch of government, and which then become the vector for so much of what the regime does. That's their enemy. This is they are a single issue voter. Are you going after the regulatory agencies? If so, I will make peace with the other things you bring to the table because this is so important to me. Kate says the regime going all in on sponsoring the third world invasion is what seems to be driving this coalition divide the most. Yes, so this is the thing that everyone sees as the Trojan horse. Expansion of high-skilled immigration to encourage foreign graduates of American universities and others to build new companies and industries here. Now, do I think it would be better to eliminate all immigration whatsoever? I think probably. I think it has the negatives, but the positives of it would absolutely offset that. Do I think that's ever conceivable? No. It's not ever going to be something that happens in America. It just isn't. It's something that's so deeply rooted in the American mythology, the melting pot notion, that it's never going to go away. I mean, maybe when America has completely redefined itself, become something different 200, 300, 400 years from now, whatever, and then who knows what the world's going to look like then. There's never going to be a policy of like complete cutoff of immigration. Which means then the next question is, okay, well, if there's going to be immigration, then what type of immigration would I prefer to have? Would I rather have the open borders, just complete invasion by low-skilled, violent, people of I don't know, questionable character? Do I want them? Or would I rather have, if foreign people are going to come to American universities, then I would rather those people stay in America and contribute to American economic success. So yes, I think it is a Trojan horse, but it's also one that, I don't know, to abuse the analogy, sometimes you just have to let the Trojan horse in. I don't think there's any way around it, at least at this point in time. It's clearly evil, but the lesser of two evils. I do think that it's very interesting that we're seeing this big push for boosting American economic productivity, reshoring manufacturing, reindustrializing. And this is coming very shortly after the Fed's move to basically re-sovereigntize American control over its own currency, taking a direct shot at the euro-dollar market with the move from LIBOR to SOFR, where now, as I understand it, I have to listen to people who know the stuff better than I do to try to interpret what they're saying, but as I'm understanding it, the move from LIBOR to SOFR essentially has now reestablished the value of the American dollar on American economic activity. So the more economic activity there is, the more robust the American economy is, the more valuable the dollar is. Because given the way essentially that the SOFR standard works versus LIBOR, instead of it being basically an arbitrary rate that's just determined by a board of people who are beholden to interests, who see America as an economic zone and they're beholden to other interests, now American interest rates, the value of the American dollar are going to be tied to American economic activity, which is something that you could bootstrap. It's pretty clever. I'd be very curious to see a critique of this, which I imagine would come from a libertarian perspective. But I'd be interested to see a critique of that notion. Because if the value of the American dollar and everything that pertains to that is now grounded in American economic activity, and you can bootstrap American economic activity, then you can create a sort of positive feedback loop that actually accelerates the growth. So the connection of this from the American dynamism, Gundo tech sector, with the moves being made by the WASP revival among the American commercial banks, commercial and investment banks, then I don't know. Seems like there might be a little something behind that. Anyways, I've hit the 2-hour mark. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for showing up. Plex Linuxy says kids need the spaces and workshop spaces to allow innovations. Running on an app market doesn't do anything. Yeah. That's look up Gundo, Gundo. Just look up that and study that phenomenon. What's happening there, and the big resurgence in the desire of well-connected young men to building physical things, actually beginning to innovate in the space of atoms rather than just bits, kind of bridging these worlds together. Peter Thiel has been talking about this for a long time, that we basically stopped innovating in the world of atoms in the 1970-ish. He's been talking about this for a long time, and Peter Thiel is like the mimetic model for Silicon Valley, Thiel and Musk. So Musk is very obviously working a lot in the world of atoms, and Thiel has been bemoaning the loss of it for a long time, and now we're seeing it. They're rebooting this sort of innovation and really driving the forefront of it, and it's all a bunch of like Zoomer white guys who have mullets and they like dress nice and they drink energy drinks and love memes and Zen, and they're basically our guys culturally, which bodes well for the future. $1.99 super chat from Colin. He says, "Good work, Matt. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. Appreciate the rest of you. Do me a favor and hit the like button on your way out if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitter @RealKingPilled. And we'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday. Yep, we'll be back tomorrow for another edition of the Astrolabe. Go join the Kingpill Discord at kingpill.com. You can be a part of the Schizo stream, the voice chat on Friday evening, where we sit and we watch some sort of interesting schizo video. We've done Tartaria. We've done the heart not being a pump. Might do some more stuff with the pole shift thing this week. We'll see. But if you join any subscription level on for the Discord, we'll get you in there. Kingpill.com. Go